And I, too, have been a chaplain of Mr. James Talley. And I, too, was privileged. In fact, in my first 6 months as being a chaplain at Santa Rafael. Now I'm at Santa Rosa Kaiser, but then I was at San Rafael Kaiser as a chaplain. And I walked in the room, and I noticed Sister Dolores. It was like, huh? You know, my eyes were like, what are you doing here? And then I saw Mr. Talley laying in the bed. I saw his son across the bed in the room. And when I walked in, I noticed something special. And we chaplains, when we're trained to identify what's happening in the room, visually, spiritually, emotionally. And most of the time, when we walk in the room, we feel fear, we feel frustration, and we feel anger. But that's not what I felt when I came in that room. You know what I felt? I felt love. I felt love when Mr. Talley said, you know my wife, Dolores, just the way he said it, as he was looking across the room at her. And then he introduced me to his son. And then he said, how are you? I said, I'm doing well, but better yet, how are you? He said, oh, I'm going to get home to my wife. It's time for me to get out of here. And so when he greeted me with such a great smile, but that love was setting in the room. And that smile can warm up any place, which I've heard many of you talk about already. So there was a lot to Mr. Talley, because he could have been a different way, because at the worst moment in his life, laying in a hospital bed, all he did was show love in the room. That's a blessing. Yes. Because we don't see that often as chaplains. So because in his worst moments of life, laying in that bed, showing me this eternally powerful feeling of love is what I am left with and will continue to be. Because he could not have been as kind and loving at that moment. In fact, he could have just grunted at me, as we get a lot. But not Mr. James Talley. So I found a scripture that reminded me of that day of walking in that room. And it comes out of 1 Corinthians 13. You've heard that scripture. It's about love. Scripture is 4 through 8. And I'm going to read from the Message Bible version. And it says, love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut. It doesn't have a swelled head. It doesn't force itself on others. It isn't always me first. It doesn't fly off the handle. It doesn't keep score of the sins of others. It doesn't revel when others grovel. It takes pleasure in the flowering of truth, and it puts up with anything. Trust God always. Always looks for the best and never looks back, but keeps going to the end, because love never dies. That is who Mr. James Talley is, was, and will be for us. Amen.